Are you really expecting me to eat this? My sister-in-law asked, glaring at the plate of food I had just served her. I had made pasta for us, hoping for a calm lunch. Before I could say anything, she added, "This is awful," grabbed the plate, and dumped the entire meal into the trash. I was stunned. "What are you doing?" I shouted, trying to hold back my anger. "If it tastes bad, it belongs in the trash," she replied with a smirk, pulling out some instant noodles to cook instead. She had no idea this moment would change her life forever. I'm Carolyn, a 35-year-old housewife. I live with my husband, Graham, and our 2 sons. We're a family of 4. We had our first son soon after getting married, and our second 2 years later. Now, they're 6 and 4 years old. Graham and I met at a party hosted by a mutual friend. Back then, I was a nurse, and he was a doctor. It's funny that we didn't meet at a hospital, but at a party instead. Our shared profession gave us plenty to talk about, and we connected right away. He's 3 years older than me, but his playful, youthful energy made our conversations easy and fun. What really drew me to him was his confidence and reliability. He showed me how dependable he was, and it made me fall for him even more. We started dating, and a year later, we got married. Soon after, we had our first child and began building a life together. I left my job to take care of our kids and manage the household while Graham worked to support us. He's always been kind and appreciative, even after all these years. "Thanks for all the cooking and cleaning, Carolyn. I can focus on work because you take care of everything at home," he often says. His gratitude makes me feel valued and happy. On his days off, he spends time with the kids too. I'm so thankful to have such a great husband. Our happy marriage and teamwork have helped our kids grow up to be kind and well-behaved. Recently, our apartment started to feel cramped, so we decided to build a house before our oldest starts elementary school. We visited real estate agents and toured different properties. Talking about our dream home brought us even closer. After a lot of planning, we finally started building the house. When we visited Graham's parents during New Year's, we shared our exciting news. That's when they surprised us by saying they were also thinking of moving to a new place. "We're getting older," my father-in-law, Stanley, said. "Instead of staying in this house as we age, we're thinking of moving to a high-end retirement facility. It'll be more comfortable for us." They planned to sell their house, but the place they wanted had a waiting list of 6 months. Hearing this, my husband came up with an idea. "We won't be moving into our new house for another 6 months, he said. "Why don't we all live together here until then? That way, we can help you if you need anything, and it'll save us money on rent. Plus, our apartment is too small for the kids, and this house is much more spacious." The in-laws liked the idea and agreed, so we packed up, ended our apartment lease, and moved in with them. "Thank you so much, Sage and Stanley, for letting us stay here," I said. "We're happy to have you," my mother-in-law, Sage, replied with a smile. "Grandma, Grandpa, let's play," the kids shouted, excited to be in the big house. "Me too," I laughed. "Okay, let's play later," my husband said, "but first, let's unpack." The kids loved the spacious house with its big yard and were thrilled to spend more time with their grandparents. They quickly put their belongings in the room the in-laws prepared for them and ran outside to play. My husband and I watched them with happy smiles. Our new house, ready in 6 months, also had a big yard. I knew the kids would have just as much fun there. While I was thinking about this, I suddenly saw someone standing by the window, looking outside. Before I could figure out who it was, the person started shouting, "Be quiet, I'm trying to sleep, keep the noise down." The yelling scared the kids, and they froze. I was shocked. The woman yelling was messy, wearing sweatpants and with long, untidy hair. My husband stepped forward, visibly angry. "Sis, what are you doing yelling at the kids? The nerve of you all to just move in and make noise." "I'm trying to sleep," she shouted back. It was Sloane, my sister-in-law. I hadn't seen her since our wedding and thought she lived on her own since she wasn't around during New Year's, but apparently, she'd been staying here all along. "Enough, Sloane," Stanley said firmly. "I won't allow this behavior." She stormed off to her room, but the kids were too scared to play outside anymore and came back into the house. "I'm sorry about that," Stanley said, trying to comfort them. "Your aunt gets upset easily, but it's not your fault. Kids are supposed to run and play outside." "Let's have some tea and snacks," Sage added, and the kids cheered up, running to wash their hands. Meanwhile, my husband asked his parents about Sloane. "Does Sis ever leave the house?" he asked. "No," Sage said, looking worried. "She's been living here all this time. She used to work part-time a few years ago, but she quit after some trouble at her job. Since then, she's been staying home." Apparently, Sloane had been avoiding us whenever we visited, so we hadn't seen her in years, but now that we were living together, it was impossible to avoid each other. Her sudden outburst at the kids made me worry about what else might happen. I began to feel uneasy about living with Sloane. At dinner time, Sloane didn't come down to eat with us. My husband asked his parents, "Should we call her?" "She doesn't want to eat with us," Stanley replied, sounding a bit resigned. It turned out this had been going on for a long time. Sloane would wait until after everyone finished eating before coming down. She had basically isolated herself. While being a recluse isn't necessarily bad, her earlier outburst at the kids had me worried. Neither my husband nor I knew how to handle Sloane, since we barely knew her. "I didn't know my sister was living here too. Sorry about this," my husband said to me. Despite my concerns, I reminded myself that this was just a temporary arrangement, so I prepared myself for whatever challenges came next. The next day, after the kids went to kindergarten and my husband went to work, Sloane woke up around noon and came into the living room. When she saw me, she seemed surprised. "Why are you here?" she asked. I was confused by her question. Before I could respond, she added, "You're still staying?" I realized she might not know about the living arrangement. "Didn't Sage and Stanley tell you?" I asked. "Tell me what?" she replied. This seemed like a good opportunity to explain things to her, so I did so politely. "We moved in yesterday. We're staying here for now," I said. "I hope we can get along, Sloane," I added with a small nod. This made Sloane angry. She clenched her fists. "What? I didn't know about this. You just showed up, and now we're living together? Get out right now," she yelled. Her sudden outburst shocked me again. Sage hurried over, alarmed by the noise. "What's going on, Sloane? Why are you upset?" "Mom, what is this about living together? You can't just decide that. I don't want to live with her and her noisy kids," Sloane shouted. I was really angry, but I knew getting upset would only make things worse. I stayed calm and spoke softly. "I'm sorry, Sloane. We'll try not to cause any trouble. Please bear with us," I said, bowing my head. But Sloane didn't stop with her hostile attitude. "You think you're being so mature now," she said. "No, I didn't mean that," I started, but she cut me off. "You're just looking down on me, right? Because you married a doctor," she accused. "Stop it, Sloane. Don't say things like that to Carolyn," my mother-in-law intervened. "Shut up. You probably wish I was never born and that Graham was your only child," Sloane snapped. "That's not true. Why do you talk like that about yourself?" Sage said, upset. "I can tell when you're lying to me. Don't underestimate me," Sloane shouted, and then went back upstairs, pouring hot water into her instant noodles. Sage sighed and turned to me. "I'm so sorry, Carolyn. Ever since she failed her university entrance exam, she's been like this. She was always very sensitive. She had trouble getting along with her classmates and has these paranoid thoughts," she explained. "Really?" I replied, feeling bad for her. "She even quit the backup university we found for her. We encouraged her to at least try a part-time job, but she kept quitting them. She finally stuck with one for a while, but then suddenly quit and has been like this ever since. Stanley and I are getting older and don't have the energy to argue with her. We just don't know what to do," Sage said, looking sad. Hearing Sage's story made me feel overwhelmed. Were the in-laws really struggling so much with Sloane? My husband had mentioned that Sloane was sensitive and difficult to handle, but since he didn't know she was still living there, he probably hadn't heard about all this from his parents. Maybe they didn't want to burden him with the details because they were trying to protect him. Realizing the situation with Sloane was serious, I suggested, "We should all sit down and talk about this together, including my husband." Sage agreed, and that night, my husband, the in-laws, and I had a serious discussion about Sloane. My husband was shocked by how serious the problem was. "We need to do something quickly," he said urgently. "First, we need to figure out why Sloane isn't working. If we can understand why she quit her part-time jobs, we might find a solution." He immediately went to talk to Sloane. "Sis, can I talk to you for a minute?" he asked. "What?" "I'm busy," she replied. "Sorry to interrupt, I just want to talk," he said, trying to approach her gently. At first, Sloane was distant, but eventually, she started talking. "It's always someone else's fault, never mine," she muttered. "I see. That must have been tough," my husband said, listening patiently. When he came out of her room, he looked exhausted. I asked her about the job she quit. She just blamed others, saying she wasn't at fault. But from what I gathered, most of the problems were caused by her, he told me. "That's tough," I said, realizing how complicated things were. It was a good sign that Sloane was starting to open up, though. Even with his busy schedule, my husband continued to talk to Sloane in the evenings and on his days off. Because of this, Sloane began coming down to the dining table when we or the in-laws were eating, and we started eating meals together. The in-laws were happy. "Sloane, would you like some rice?" I asked. Yes, please, she answered. Today, we have chicken. It's delicious. I'll give you one of Dad's pieces, my husband said. Thank you, Sloane replied. Seeing the in-laws interact happily with Sloane made me smile. The kids, seeing that Sloane wasn't as scary anymore, ate their meals without hesitation. Good job, Graham, I said, appreciating his efforts. He sighed. This is just the first step. There was still a lot to do to help Sloane become independent, especially since we and the in-laws wouldn't be living with her in a few months. Sloane started coming down to the living room during the day and slowly began interacting with the kids. I thought this was a positive sign. One evening, while helping with dinner, she muttered, "You're really bad at cooking, Carolyn. And you're not even pretty. How did you manage to seduce Graham? Did you use your body? You seem like the type of unattractive woman who somehow keeps getting guys. That's you." It seemed like she couldn't be happy unless she was putting others down. I was angry, but I decided to stay calm since it would only be for a little while longer. However, Sloane's behavior got worse. One day, when Sage was at the hospital and Stanley was out with friends, I was alone with Sloane at lunchtime. "I'm hungry, Carolyn. Make me something," Sloane said reluctantly. I made pasta for both of us, but then, "Wow, this looks awful," Sloane said, and did something shocking. "I can't eat this," she exclaimed and threw the pasta I had made straight into the trash can. Even I couldn't hold back at that point. "What are you doing? Throwing away food is unacceptable," I protested. Sloane just smirked and replied, "If it's inedible, it's just garbage, right? If I can't eat it, I have to throw it away." She then pulled out instant pasta from the cupboard. It seemed like she had planned to throw away my food all along. At that moment, I couldn't forgive Sloane anymore. I had been patient, hoping she'd become more independent, but she was beyond help. That night, I told my husband and the in-laws about the harassment I'd been enduring, including what happened earlier that day. They were disappointed and made a difficult decision: they would give up on Sloane. Our new house was almost ready, and the in-laws had secured a spot at a retirement facility. We decided to move forward with our plans and started packing right away. A month later, we and the in-laws were all set to move. On moving day, the movers were busy transporting large items. As the furniture and appliances were being taken out, Sloane came downstairs, looking sleepy. "What's going on? Why is it so noisy this morning?" she asked. "We're moving to our new house," my husband answered. "Oh really? Wait, why is the fridge gone? I was about to have some milk. Are you stealing it?" Sloane asked, missing the point completely. "We sold the fridge," my mother-in-law explained, frustrated. "Sold it? Why?" Sloane asked, confused. "We're moving out too. We're going somewhere else," my mother-in-law said. "So that's it? We're moving to a new place? Huh. You should have just told me. No heads up or discussion. Dad and Mom always do this, miss important things." "Well, whatever. Make sure to pack my stuff too," Sloane said, oddly happy and bossing us around. My husband calmly replied, "Okay, but where is your house?" "Huh?" Sloane looked surprised. "What do you mean, where?" "Obviously, it's wherever Mom and Dad are going, right?" Stanley sighed and spoke up. "No, we're moving to a retirement home. We're not living with you," he said firmly. "What? I didn't know about this." Sloane protested. "It's because of the way you treated Carolyn. We've always cared for you, even though we didn't know how to handle you. We've supported you, and Graham and his family have tried to help you become independent. You even started to communicate with us again, but then you became cruel to Carolyn. You've trampled on our kindness. After everything, we've decided we can't keep trying," Stanley said sternly. Sloane finally realized the seriousness of the situation. "I can't manage on my own. I can't stay here alone," she panicked. "What are you talking about? We're not leaving this house to you. We've already put it up for sale. You need to pack your things and leave immediately," Stanley said firmly. "But I'll be homeless," Sloane exclaimed. "Well, yes," Stanley replied. "Wait, that's too harsh. You have a responsibility to take care of your child," she protested. "Enough. Stop acting like a teenager at 30. We're not heartless. We've arranged a place for you to stay right away," Stanley responded. "Where is it?" she asked anxiously. "At my brother's farm," Stanley said. "A farm? In the countryside?" Sloane looked shocked. "Yes, that's right. My brother's already been informed. You can move there anytime, but you'll have to work in the fields every day," Stanley explained. "I can't do that. That's impossible." Sloane resisted. "Then the only other option is homelessness here," he concluded. Sloane collapsed on the spot and then turned to my husband, pleading, "Graham, please take me with you to your new house. Let me live with you." It was astonishing that she would even ask such a thing. My husband replied coldly, "Sis, I will never forgive you for what you've done to my wife. I'm cutting ties with you. Don't ever show your face to us again." We left Sloane behind and drove to our new home. Later, we heard that Sloane had decided to go to Stanley's brother's farm. However, the remote countryside location had limited entertainment options and a poor internet connection. With nothing to do but work, her days were reportedly miserable. My husband and I felt it was well deserved. When we heard about her hard work from Stanley's brother, the in-laws moved into a luxurious retirement home and were enjoying their comfortable life. Our new home was everything we hoped for, and we were enjoying every moment. Our children were thrilled, running around in the yard every day. We looked forward to continuing our happy family life together.